Good afternoon, everybody. This is George Bewley, your Prime Fanic here. We are hosting the Voice Actors panel here as part of the Multiverse fundraiser. And of course, we are doing this for Comic Books for Kids. Our second year in a row, we are sponsoring this charity here. So you can see the link down below here at donateforfacebook.com/the Multiverse fundraiser and donate however you want to here. But we got a great panel for you here today. So, of course, got to bring on their heavy hitter here. Lauren, good to see you again.
Hey, it's good to be here.
And then again, we got Mr. Chris Jowers in the house. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to make myself scarce, but you guys have at it. And of course, if you guys need me, I'm right here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, George. Well, welcome everybody to, I believe this is our third year of doing the independent voice actor panel. And to my left is the absolute superstar of this, Lauren L.W. Salinas, and she is an accomplished audiobook narrator and voice actor at a very high professional level. Myself, Chris Jowers, I have done some audiobook work, but my voice acting has mainly been with private clients and also doing a lot of audio theater work. That's where my background is. So guys, welcome. And today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about getting into the industry, the technology, the nuts and bolts of things that you need to do, websites that would be good for you guys to do, but also a lot of tips and tricks about how to make it, some of the pitfalls that we face and that you're going to face going into it, and answer any questions that you have. So first and foremost, guys, let's talk about technology. If you want to get into voice acting, you're really going to have to start on your own, improve your quality. So Lauren, if you would go ahead and talk about the mics and the hardware and software that you use that you find beneficial to get into this business.
Okay, so I should say that my equipment now is very, very different from my equipment when I started. I started podcasting in 2011 with the headphone mic that I was using for World of Warcraft raids at the time. Thankfully, I improved that a little. I ended up using an Audio-Technica. Oh, it's one of the entry models. I ended up using that one, and that's what I was using when I started getting into this. I was using that. I was using Audacity. I wasn't using a mixer or a preamp or anything like that. And then as I started getting more into it, and this is what I recommend for everyone, you don't jump in the deep end. You don't bankrupt yourself. You add everything slowly. You figure out this is what needs to be done, and then you adapt. So right now, what I'm using is a Rode NT1 microphone. I have sound treated my office, and then to kind of further cut down on the echo, since I don't have an actual booth or anything like that, I ended up getting this kind of sound dampening room divider from IKEA, and it's been working really well for me. I have an Onyx, a Mackie Onyx Producer mixer. It's real simple. It's just 2 channels, and it just gets the job done. And I use a preamp, especially for when I'm doing live stuff like podcasting or this panel. I use a DBX 286. None of these are new models, but they're all pretty excellent workhorses. I will say the DBX was a little bit fiddly for me, and I think I've got it to a good place right now, but it's not without a lot of experimentation.
Yeah.
Recording wise, like I said, I started out using Audacity, and I still use that for a lot of stuff. It's free, and there's some stuff that it's really great at. However, for actually recording, I've started to use Isotope. Well, I started using Studio One is the what I use for recording. And editing, I use Isotope's RX, I think 8, which is a few years behind, but it works great for me.
Yeah.
And if you decide to go with those two, I highly recommend Don Barnes, Baarns. He offers classes on how to record. With his classes, he also offers like macros and settings that are really great for like podcasting, audiobooks. He primarily does work with the audiobook community, but voice acting also great on there. And like I said, it's a bit complicated, but it's a one-time fee as opposed to things like, Adobe, where it's like a monthly fee these days.
Or a
What
yearly
about you?
subscription.
Yeah, what about you? What do you use?
So when I got started, I used a Yeti Blue, which is pretty much a lot of people's standard to get into. It is a spherical mic that has some pre-built-in software, and you just choose a level, and it's directional, omnidirectional, 2-channel, things like that. And the great thing that helped me out is when I got started doing this, is a buddy of mine was a musician, and he just bootlegged me like professional grade audio software. So statute of limitations has run out. But when I really started getting into it, really taking this, I was very lucky to hook up with an audio theater company in Memphis called Chatterbox Audio Theater. All our shows are up there. Please check them out. And I worked with some phenomenal people who were just like, this is how you make professional sounds. You're going to need a good mic. You're going to need this. But just like Lauren said, guys, when you get into this hobby as a beginning and you want to do this as a side, look at it this way. When you want to do this as a business, this is going to be a side hustle, maybe for years, even with your talent level, because there's so much you have to do to get noticed. There's so much you have to do to make those connections. So when you get started, you want to get a good mic. You don't want to break the bank, like Lauren said. There's some great stuff out there. There's great resources. If you're just starting out, a Yeti is fine. A Yeti is excellent, because you're going to have to, you see right beside Lauren, she's got a pop filter. You've got to have that pop filter before the mic. That's going to get rid of your explosives, your puzz, your buzz. When because the air that comes out of your mouth is going to hit that mic and it's going to crackle it, and nothing will fix that.
If I can hop in, just a real quick recommendation. So, like I said, when I started podcasting, I started upgrading my equipment. And part of the reason of that was my producer of the podcast, who also co-runs a podcast called Better Podcasting, where they talk about, it's primarily podcast focused from the name, but they also do a lot of talk about different equipment at different price points and things like that. So I highly, highly, highly recommend checking them out, and listening for yourself and seeing, okay, this is the price point that I'm willing to pay. Because again, there's two things. If you get into this and you're planning to make a go for it, there's two things that you really need to be putting your money back into. One of them is sound. So yes, sound treating a space, whether it's, for the longest time I recorded in a closet with a bunch of just clothes muffling a bunch of the sound, or whether it's the equipment. The other thing is classes. And it pays to think of it as your continuing education. And you want to find a variety of people to work with. You want to find a variety of, like, okay, you want to know, this is what I want to go into. Let's take audiobooks specifically. So you want to take some classes with people who have done audiobooks before. If you want to do commercials, you look into people who do commercial read classes. If you want to do animation, you look into voice actors who have done plenty of animation. The big thing there is you want to find a variety of teachers and listen to them. And if you want to do that at a free point, I really recommend Rob Paulson's podcast, Talkin' Tunes. I used to listen to that on the way to and from work when I had a 9-to-5 job. And I didn't realize how much I'd absorbed until I started actually recording.
Yeah. And I got very lucky with mine, because working with Chatterbox, I got the hands-on experience working with people who had been doing this at a professional level, professional sound mixers, performers, people who were doing audiobooks, people who were doing voice acting. And because of that connection, I got to work with big name voice actors. I got to work with Jess Harnell. I got to work with Tom Kenny. I got to work with J. Michael Tatum. And I got to work with John Delancey, Q from Star Trek, who makes a huge impact in voice acting right now, not only as acting. But a lot of it, guys, is not only learning the business, is practicing and honing your craft. And it is how to manipulate your voice. Yes, that's a little bit of it. Accents, but it is acting. You can do all the voices in the world and you can be a great mimic. But if you can't act, if you can't change your emotion and convey those things in your voice, it's not going to go anywhere. So you have to be honest with yourself. Even if you have no acting experience and all that, just like Lauren said, get into classes, take an acting class, join a voice acting class. There's so much you can do to prepare.
We have a question in the chat from Hollis. Are there any classes or programs in particular that you recommend?
And I've even just done the free version of Steve Bloom's voice acting class.
Yeah.
And it is some money to join it. But let me tell you, folks, the man knows his thing, and it is money well spent. It really is.
I actually got the opportunity for about a year. He was offering Steve Bloom, by the way, voice actor for everything. He's
Wolverine. If you've heard Wolverine.
He's Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. He's everything.
Yes.
But I was lucky enough to be a part of a class that he did as kind of an experiment. It was a very much like one-on-one, limited amount of students. I did that for about a year, and he's no longer offering that, sadly. But yes, his weekly classes that he offers are so good, so educational. He has some amazing guests on that are, mostly from the voice acting side of things, but occasionally he'll have like Mary Elizabeth McGlynn on, who has done a lot of voice directing. So you'll get to hear about things from that side of the mic. That's an excellent one. Let's see. It all kind of depends on your price point. I highly recommend looking up like Red Scythe Studios and Voice Acting Club, and they offer some classes at some really good introductory price points. Earlier this past year, I took a commercial reading class with Voice Acting Club for about $100, I guess. Let's see what else.
I know, and also because there's a lot of them out there now. There's a lot of voice actors that are doing this, folks. Make sure when you see something that looks good, and you may not be, maybe they're not a big name. That doesn't mean they don't know what they're doing. That doesn't mean they're not a workhorse in this industry. But look them up, do your research. And it's great if you can find someone who is a voice actor, but if they also have done voice direction, they've also done production, if they've had multiple hats in the industry, that's always a good teacher, because they have experience out beyond just the mic. And that's great to have. Skills Hub.
Skills Hub was co-founded by like Jennifer Hale, who, again, voice actor who's been in everything. And I remember when she was first co-starting it, they offer classes. It's like a bit more pricey, but again, you're getting a lot higher quality. Even go to community colleges near you. A lot of them offer like acting classes, improv classes. Some are even offering voice acting classes now.
And it's not
theater
just
groups.
Yes. And it's not just voice acting that you want to focus on. So when Lauren helped me break into audiobooks, because a friend of ours wanted me to do an audiobook. So I bent her ear constantly about what's due. But one thing you really want to do, guys, is learn your software. So I use Reaper, and when I joined Chatterbox, that was our engineers' software of choice. So that's what my experience was with. But then I just deep dove into it one day. I just sat down and I recorded some voice samples, and I would spend hours going through FX chains, the dialogue, just the vocabulary of knowing what to do and how to get my sound quality right.
The way
you really need to do that.
The way that YouTube is such a good repository of knowledge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, whether it's, I have like a whole playlist of just voice acting stuff, whether it's how to calibrate my particular model of preamp or editing, like, okay, here's how to do this particular thing in this editing program. Lots of people have done just full courses on just Audacity or whatever
Yeah.
editing program you plan to use, to voice exercises, because that's one of the big things that you need to do is take care of your voice. You need to learn how to warm it up. You need to learn how to find comfortable ranges. So I made the mistake in one of my audiobooks where I gave both the main character and her love interest husky voices, because husky voices are easy for me to do. The thing is, it really wears on you. And I have learned, okay, I need to be a bit more mindful of who gets what voice in this book, because
Exactly.
it's a big time commitment. And like, again, there's horror stories of actors who have lost a lot of their vocal range from doing monster screams or doing action sounds and doing voices that are kind of at the edge of their range for something that ends up being a main character of a show that gets picked up. And so you kind of got to know, playing around with your voice is the answer. You learn what feels good and what doesn't feel good.
It's weird enough because I can do the Joker for 8 hours, live performance for 8 hours, but I've learned hydrate all day long, and I use these Ricola throat drops every 45 minutes. I pop one of them, and that just, it's not a miracle cure, but what it does is it keeps everything hydrated. It keeps my throat, my vocal cords hydrated, and that's the main thing. The first real voice acting gig I did was working in fantasy sports, and I was the voice of the fantasy sports site. So I just recorded football player names all day, and I didn't think anything of it. I had a big gallon of water, and I'd be going like, Tim Tebow, Tim Tebow, Tim Tebow. And by hour 5, I was talking like this. I just shut your voice down. You have to realize it's just like working out, guys. This is a muscle. Your vocal cords vibrate to create sound. That means it shakes off all the water. It shakes off all the moisture down there. You can strip your voice.
You're passing air through
fast.
it. You're passing air through it. And additionally, I moved from Houston, Texas, which is a swamp, I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, which is extremely dry.
And high up there.
Yeah, so hydration is incredibly important. I tend to do audiobooks, and so that is just talking for hours at a time. And,
well, let me ask you, since we're touching on this, how many hours can you consecutively work before you I'm done for the day?
Okay, so I will preface this by saying that in my case, it's not just the voice that's a concern. Like I said, I used to have a 9-to-5 job. I am physically disabled. I have problems sitting or standing for very long periods of time. So after about an hour and a half is kind of my limit these days. Voice-wise, I can talk a bit longer than that. I think I can hit about 2.5 hours before it starts to really be a strain, especially if I'm just talking like this, very conversational.
Yeah. My first audiobook, I was like, I'm going to knock some chapters out today. I got nothing to do today. I'm just going to do chapters. And I thought I did a banger of a job. I was listening back. This is great. And then I went through my editing process. The first 3 chapters were great. Chapters 4 and 5, you could the voices were great and all that, but you could hear that rasp and that crispness of the voice fading. So I had to re-record all of that.
Yes.
So you don't think you can just, I'll take Saturday and do 8 hours. It's not going to happen, people. It's not going to happen.
Hollis pointed out that Haley Patillo teaches vocal health to all of her singing students. It's super important. Absolutely. By the way, singing lessons, really excellent way to learn vocal health, breath control. you might have some projects where you end up singing. I recently got done, actually through Hollis, I
Mhm.
have started getting involved with Dr. Brian Billings at Texarkana, A&M Texarkana, and I've done 2 projects for him. In this most recent one, I actually had a lead role and had a bunch of songs. And yes, it's very, very helpful in learning how to kind of modulate your voice. So singing lessons, another thing I highly recommend.
And that's something. And I just went on YouTube because
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I can be a monster. I can be inhuman. I can make sounds that freak out animals. I cannot sing. I cannot harmonize. I can imitate, weirdly enough, I can imitate someone else's voice and be closer to acceptable, but I can't sing. I just don't have that natural ability. But the vocal exercises, the breathing exercises
Mhm.
are massively important, are really important. And this is something that Lauren told me when we talked about getting into audiobooks. She's like, get into doing breathing exercises.
Oh,
And
yes. Oh, thank you, Hollis.
no,
Yeah, if you want to hear me as the Italian Christmas witch, La Befana, you can still hear that on A&M Texarkana's YouTube page until I think about the middle of February. So there is that. Speaking of, like you were saying, with creature noises and stuff like that, one of the things that I really recommend to people who are getting into audiobooks is figure out what you want your niche to be. Because, yeah, everybody wants to be in video games, animation, anime, whatever. But the thing is, there's so much more to voice acting than that. Like, there's audiobooks, there's narration, there's
commercial work.
education, commercial work, just so much stuff that you wouldn't even think of. Creature noises.
And
If
by the
you're a
way,
woman who can do creature noises, they're going to love you because creature noises is such a very small niche. And it's pretty much the 2 guys who everybody knows who do it are D. Bradley Baker and Frank Welker.
oh, Frank Welker, Megatron people. If you want to know who Frank Welker is, if you've heard Megatron
Yep.
in the last 30 years as Frank Welker.
Yep. Also, isn't he Fred from Scooby-Doo?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
it is
everything. His range is
ridiculous.
amazing.
It is ridiculous what he can do.
Yeah. And then D. Bradley Baker, chances are if you go and you play a video game or watch a movie where there's creature noises, you go to the credits, there's D. Bradley Baker as creature noises.
Yeah.
But yeah, finding your niche, again, it comes with playing around with your voice, knowing what you're good at.
And I would like to give everyone something that I started when I lost, and I think I've mentioned this every time we talk, but folks, it is such a wonderful way to test yourself. When Chatterbox closed up and I had moved away and I wasn't doing shows every month or every 2 months through them, I was not doing any voice acting. So I just put on my social media, hey, are you having a bad day? Uplifting voice message. Send me a request and I'll hit you back with whatever voice you ask me to do. This is this is direct messaging people. It's not posted up or anything like that. By having people you trust in a silly, uplifting way, challenge you to do voices that you're not. And I'm a voice guy. I love doing crazy voices. This thing opened up the doors for me to start doing different accents and voices that I never ever thought about doing. But someone asked me to do it. Even little things like that can help challenge you to increase your repertoire of voices.
And
Yeah.
This actually slides really nicely into something that I wanted to bring up. So the voice acting industry is very, very different from where I hopped in back in like 2016-ish. One of the things these days that is incredibly important is kind of putting yourself out there, whether it's through that, whether it's through YouTube skits, whether it's through TikTok, whatever. The thing is that creating your own content is one of the ways that you get noticed. In my case, me and some friends were co-writing stuff. That kind of fell off as my health got worse. But I've reconnected with some people lately that we are planning to do some stuff. There's like a friend of mine that wants to do an educational project that I'm going to help with. Another friend is hopping in, and I just group writing with him is something that I'm really looking forward to, because lots of people want to get into this industry, especially after 2020, when everybody was stuck at home and losing jobs and realizing, hey, this is something that is feasible. It is a huge, huge group of people for very limited roles. And one of the ways to ensure that you keep in practice and get your name out there and make friends and connect with people is creating your own content and reaching out and working with people.
And to piggyback onto that real quick is on Facebook, there's great audio hub, there's audio hub narrators, there's voice acting groups. And I was in one and someone said, hey, we had some voice actors back out of this competition. It's a horror thing. And it was a zombie thing called Punch Out. And and they were like, well, we need this real gruff character. And the director said, hey, can you try these other voices too? So I wanted this role, but I went ahead and did all the other male roles that they were looking for. And it was a hippie character that I did that she was like, I don't know why. I need this hippie. I need you to be this hippie character. But guys, even if this is a non-paid gig, you have to be professional. You have to be on time, zero excuses, and get it done, because your reputation will be made by getting things done on time, early, get it finished, be nice, adapt. And let me tell you, you will be a part of projects that will go nowhere. You will do all of your work. You will be fantastic. My very first video game experience, a friend of mine was actually the voice director, and he said, we've got this crazy monster character, and I know you can do it, buddy, because he worked with me for years in Chatterbox. I recorded all my lines before even getting paid to really just put my name out there. Got a great, other voice actors that were part of it were like, man, that was great. That was a great job. And the game folded. And we had all the work done. We were seeing all the video in the video game. It just didn't go anywhere. But don't take that as a chance to be unprofessional. Be professional. That's why I'm not mentioning the name of the game. I'm not mentioning people's names right now.
Two things that this kind of led me. First off, the best way to keep getting work is to be somebody that people want to work with. The whole reason I accidentally fell into voice acting was because I just kept showing up, and they'd be like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, I don't know, but let me try. And the other thing is, this is an industry with a lot of heartbreak if you let it get to you. The name of the game is auditioning and numbers. You can you can spend 8 hours a day auditioning, and you might not hear, okay, best case scenario is you get a no back. For a lot of stuff, you just never hear back. And if you let it, that rejection can get to you. And it has gotten to me before, because we all get into low spots. But putting yourself out there, it's always incredibly vulnerable. You have to kind of practice putting a thing out there and then forgetting about it, no matter how much you want it. One of my favorite roles that I've ever done, I auditioned for it. I tried my best to put it out of my mind because it was something that I was just kind of praying for that I got. And I'm not a praying person. And then I ended up getting a role with them. It was fantastic. And then that thing has not been released in the US yet.
Yeah.
And again, it can break your heart if you let it, but yeah, take every opportunity as a chance to learn, to be professional, to find new people to work with. Because again, networking it's not just, this is a thing you do for business. I have found some amazing people just to befriend and to work with. Just Chris, just from showing up and working with people and, hey, this is a thing that I'm doing and I think you'd be perfect for. Or, hey, do you know who could help me out with this? Yes, it's this person. It's an industry that really thrives on who you know and how people know you. So that is always something to keep in mind. Be someone that people like to work with and find people that you like to work with. George.
Hello. I just want to give you guys a break for a moment here because I thought this was a good stopping point for our halfway point. So I'm going to give you guys a break here for a moment and play our Comic Books for Kids video here. So we'll be right back, folks. So stay tuned.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
The Multiverse Fundraiser would like to thank our sponsors: Earth Dog Studios, Clobberin Comics, The Art of Brian Rodman, Studio Moonfall, Elusive Comics, and of course, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment Network for hosting this event. Learn how to support these businesses on the MVFR website.
And we are back. And we got one comment here from Hollis.
As the great Dolly Parton says, it's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. Dolly speaks wisdom.
Yep. And as a Tennessean, you have to put respect on her name.
I think Americans all around can put respect on her, on that lady's name.
I'm going to tell you right now, in Tennessee, it's a different level. It is a different level. Dolly Parton is the closest thing we have to royalty in the state.
I would almost say more like demigod level in royalty. As one who visits Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge on a regular basis, yes, I've experienced this. It's the similar thing as when, like, if you're in Louisville, if you're a certain age, everybody has a Muhammad Ali story.
Yeah.
If you live in that area of Tennessee, everybody's got a Dolly story. Here's actually a question I've got for you all here, the relevant stuff. Of course, there's the always impending threat of AI taking jobs, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But, in my experience, I've noticed, basically how people have started using that, but you almost kind of start noticing the flaws right away and the differences. Specifically, there was a video I saw on YouTube last night kind of talking about Peter Criss from Kiss. And the voiceover was Gene Simmons' voice talking about Peter. But as I'm listening to him going, that's not Gene's voice.
Yeah.
That's somebody using, an AI program to copy Gene, but you could hear the staccato, the way the voice was like, yeah, that's artificial. That's not the way he talks. So,
and the danger of it is, though, is it gets better geometrically. So what we can notice now in a year, it will be, it is getting better all the time. So the main thing is, guys, that is part of the competition you're facing. On ACX, they are using AI stuff, and it doesn't sound good right now. It sounds very stilted. I know actual podcasts and stuff that are using AI voiceover stuff, and they're using AI artwork. One of the things I stress, if you want to be taken seriously, this industry, guys, stay away from the creative use of AI.
Yep.
Don't use AI artwork for your sample, for your placeholder stuff for your voice. I've seen actors do it. I've seen fellow voice actors start doing it. And some of my own favorite channels of audio work that I listen to that I would love to be a narrator on started using AI artwork. And folks, let me tell you, it tarnishes your reputation. And I say that as someone who, when I published a novel, I published a short story collection, and it was early days AI. We didn't know about open source AI yet. We didn't know about this stuff. a friend of mine that was a digital maker was like, hey, I can use this software to kind of to help get this thing together. And I have pulled that book the second I found out what was happening, and have made public apologies about using it. And it was just some it wasn't like very complex work at all. It didn't even look, AI, but I just stopped it immediately. You got to divorce yourself from it entirely. It is not good.
So like we were saying earlier, you want to be somebody that people want to work with. And one of the ways that you become that person is by uplifting your fellow artists. Because this is all of art essentially is connected, whether it's visual art, audio stuff, acting, whatever. The thing is, we are all creative people, and we are all trying to bring that creativity into the world. Sadly, the world needs money in order to live. So therefore, it is now a business. And you don't want to tank your reputation by taking that shortcut.
Yeah.
Especially when there's plenty of, and the English professors all say amen. Ooh. So a big thing to think about is, how would you feel if it was you? Instead of getting like a piece of AI art or something like that, imagine that somebody is taking your voice and making money off of it, and none of that is going to you.
And I don't know, Lauren, let me ask you in your experience, because this has happened to me the last 3 professional jobs I've had in both acting and in voice acting. Get the contract, and in the contract, the client would say the performance or the whatever it is, live action or not, will not used for AI research.
Yes, that is an increasingly common
contract.
That's an increasingly common thing in contracts. In fact, one of the strikes, actually, the current ongoing SAG-AFTRA AAA video game voice actor strike, is because they're trying to get better protections against AI as part of their negotiations.
Yeah.
NAVA, NAVAA, is a voice acting group that lately has really taken to trying to educate people about AI and contracts and things like that. It's also important to remember that there are people who will gladly work for free, like whatever your budget is. The Casting Call Club website, you can sort by paid opportunities and volunteer opportunities. If you want a voice and you're fine with it being somebody who is just doing it for fun or is just doing it to get experience, things like that. Art. Some artists will do stuff for you for free or for discounts. You need to talk to that artist. But always remember, this is a skill. Whatever creative thing, it is a skill. Lots of people are like, oh, I can do that. Well, then why haven't you? And if you can't do that yourself, generative AI isn't the answer. There are cases where generative AI can be ethically used, I believe. Like if an artist trains it on all of their own works. Like I have a friend who no longer has the hand control that they used to have, so they trained it on their works and we're playing around with it, things like that. That I have no problem with.
And I believe there's also companies, and I think it's Adobe, because Adobe was like, we have AI in the software, and our AI is only programmed off of the imagery that we own, that we have bought from the photographer or whatever it was. And they're very staunch about that. And I've even worked this movie that I'm working on now, that the person said, by the way, guys, some of the special effects are generated through AI that was ethically sourced by paying the artists to create this, to make and they've been using AI and computer generated stuff for a while, but it's mostly like the artist creates the image, but the AI manipulates the movement.
Yeah.
things like that. So there are ways it can be used in a creative way that is ethical. But you have to remember, a lot of this is off of stolen work.
Yes, a lot
They
of
just
it
went
is
on the internet and scraped.
Yeah, whether it's writing, whether it's voices. There are
Mhm.
horror stories of voice actors who find their voices at various websites, and people are using their voices to make them say just horrible things.
Yep.
And it's really bad, you guys. It's really bad. There's
Mhm.
also the fact that the performance aspect is not there yet. It's been a huge thing in the audiobook space, especially this past year. And in fact, this year has been an incredibly lean one for me, audiobook wise, because so many companies, not just indie authors and stuff, but companies that can afford better are using AI voices to try and, save a few bucks.
You had Marvel Studios
Mhm.
use AI
Oh, my
to
God.
create an intro to Secret Invasion that
Which was
looks
hardly
horrible.
it was
It looks
hardly the
horrible.
worst thing about that show, but it definitely set the mood.
Yeah.
And I'm on
Let's
a
get
Marvel
off of
podcast.
AI because I feel we're
let's
just
talk
going to
about,
enrage
let's get off of that.
ourselves.
We're just going to get mad. The thing is, if you are looking for resources, other
Mhm.
resources are out there, and a lot more ethical resources, and a lot more resources that will enable you to make connections with people.
And to be honest with you, when you're doing samples, I've seen this from other voice actors. Film yourself doing it. If you don't have access to artwork or some things I've done is I've talked to other artists, or I've gone online and found an image from another artist that's done it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll post and tag them to it. And if they got back with me and said, hey, don't use my picture, boom, pull it, get rid of it, change it. But more often than not, they don't care. It's like, oh, okay, it's just picture of Dr. Doom. And I'll do a Dr. Doom voice or something like that. But more often than not, like right now, I contact artists I know. I'm like, hey, I need this. Do you mind if I use an image that you've done?
Yep.
I've never been told no. I've never ever been told no. I've always been, yeah, sure, no problem. Because again, it's reputation and things like that. There's a lot of ways you can do it. And if you don't want to do that, pop the camera on, film yourself doing the work. Because I've seen people get massive views somebody doing a monologue from a novel or something from Warhammer 40K, and getting to see the face, especially when you do monster voices. You really have to manipulate your face to get those sounds, and it looks ridiculous, but people love ridiculous. They're going to tune in to watch it.
That's some of the best advice I've gotten. Cade Hawkins, hello, howdy. Glad to have you here this morning, afternoon, whatever time it is for you. But what we're saying, oh yeah, what we're doing is we're essentially playing, especially if you're doing something like animation or a video game or monster noises or and part of playing is so R.I.P. Aaron Alston, one of my favorite authors. He wrote a lot for Star Wars. And one quote that I have kind of lived by from one of those books is, you can't look dignified when you're having fun. And when you watch back a performance that you do, that becomes incredibly obvious, especially because one of the voice acting classes that I took with Andrea Toyas, who is a casting director for Blizzard Entertainment, one of the things she always emphasizes is that bringing physicality into it really does add to it. Deborah Wilson is the example she always uses. Fantastic voice actress, fantastic actress in general. And she gets very, very into it when she records. So being aware of your space and your body and moving around and inhabiting a role, things like that, it really does add to the performance. And it looks ridiculous, but that's okay. Because again, you can't look dignified when you're having fun.
That's how Mark Hamill has always brought Joker to life. Everyone else sits down, Mark Hamill stands up, and he acts out the performance of the Joker every time. And
Yep.
he said he has to do that to really do the performance. And when I've done, and it's what I adopted when I started doing voice acting work, is that like I'll stand up, I'll set my mic up. If I'm not doing really short form content, then I'll sit at my desk and do it if I'm just doing a few quick lines or something. But if I'm doing a really big performance and I've hit my mic, I've slapped the wall, I've cracked the knuckle, I make those ambient sounds, I got to go back and re-record. But it makes a difference, folks. It really does.
Yep.
When you're throwing yourself into it.
Yep.
And
There's also the fact that sometimes, because of the way that your mouth forms words, your facial expressions can add to, like, if you're doing something and you're supposed to be happy, yeah, I can just read it like this and oh my God, I'm so happy, but it sounds unauthentic. Then, oh my God, you guys, it sounds so much better when you're actually getting super into it.
Yes. And you're going to learn about voices that are nasally, when you push your voice up, when you bring your voice down. You have to learn your range. A friend of mine, Seth Atkinson, is a great voice actor. He and I will usually never be up for the same part. His range is higher. My range is lower. I can't go as low as some other people. I can do monstrous and nasty things that some other voice actors can't, but I can't be harmonious. I can't do a sing-song voice to a certain level. You really have to play around to find your parameters so you can start pushing and kind of see how far you can go. Never settle, never stop. Always see if you can improve yourself, but also know where your lane is, if you will.
Yep.
So you can push out and expand your talent.
So, slight hurdle that you're going to have to get past is listening to the sound of your own voice regularly. I know that freaks a lot of people out. It is weird, but you're going to have to listen back to yourself. You've got to be, your very first critic needs to be yourself. And so if that's something you're uncomfortable with, it's something to take into account is you are going to have to do so much listening back to your own voice, especially if you do something like I do with audiobooks, because I edit my own stuff because I like to keep that money.
Money.
Yeah, which, by the way, if anybody wants an audiobook edited or anything like that, my schedule is currently open. If anyone wants it narrated, my schedule is currently open.
Well,
anyway.
I can edit it as well. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But because of that, listening back to your own voice and then hearing like, okay, this is where I could do this differently. This is where I can, you got to get over that real fast.
And it's something I learned when I was studying radio in high school is you don't hear yourself the way you actually sound because of the way the sound vibrates in your own skull.
Yes.
So you don't sound exactly how you think you do. I have a natural Southern accent that I can turn on and off from years of public speaking and teaching. You have to know, and by the way, when you get other people to listen to it, make sure you're getting someone who can be brutally honest with you, but also find someone who has experience doing voice or music or something. Rely on someone who's got that professional experience, okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say I could definitely chime in on this part here as a podcaster, and of course, I'm also broadcast professional prior to that. Yeah, you definitely have to be a critic of yourself. And in the case of when you're not working with a script, when you're basically just improvising or just talking off the top of your head, you will notice how many fill words, or like that. Yeah, you will notice very quickly how much those you use, and you will probably stop using those.
Yeah.
And folks, let me tell you right now, improv is a talent that you can develop. But I have many, many years of improv experience from doing live character work. But as a paid performer or not.
I don't have any like professional, like I keep meaning to take improv classes, haven't yet. But I have been tabletop role playing since the early 2000s.
That counts.
So
that counts.
Which, by the way, is a very, very valid entertainment space to take up. Is if you really like tabletop role playing, you like inhabiting those characters. Tabletop role playing and actual plays and stuff like that is a big space right now.
And
Um,
I want to piggyback on that real fast, Lauren,
Mhm.
because you are dead on the money. Is that I have friends that never voice acted. They're not in an entertainment crowd. We did a project for a friend of mine who went overseas. We did letters to the troops from the inmates of Arkham Asylum.
Mhm.
They were all role playing. We played Shadowrun and D&D and stuff together. They did some excellent work. And the best voice actor in the entire thing was the guy's father, who was a bus mechanic
Ha.
and had never done any voice acting. He does a Firefly with a Southern accent. And if you listen to him, you would not know he's not some sort of entertainer.
That is awesome.
The best people sometimes are not the best comedian is not the stand-up comedian. It's the guy that's just naturally funny. The lady that's just naturally funny.
Yep.
Don't hold yourself back from doing this. You just got to start putting yourself out there. That's all you got to start doing. And with social media, you ain't got to wait on nobody.
Yep.
You can start doing it yourself.
So we have about 10 minutes left. Anybody in the chat have any questions for us? Because otherwise we're just going to keep talking.
Yeah.
This isn't a question here, but Cade had to drop this one here. I'm not a recurring voice actor. I'm a host. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
These guys are the voice actors. What Lauren said, though, yeah, definitely with D&D, I can certainly attest to that. I played with a group for years, and basically one guy kind of started it with his character, and then it kind of just eked out to the rest of us because he played a dwarven engineer / demolition expert called Crash. And that was his guy for many, many years. And I played a barbarian from the North Country named Yarg, who would go into he would go into berserker rages over fruit, especially good berries. So like if somebody was baking and stuff like that, we'd walk into a tavern, I'd kill everybody in the tavern for a muffin. So it just kind of just spread to everybody else. We all just started getting ridiculous. So we were totally kind of ripping off like a Knights of the Dinner Table kind of thing. But
By quick suggestion, not really. So Critical Role and Dimension 20 are kind of the big ones that everybody knows about, like being the characters. There's a movie from about the early to mid 2000s, I guess. The Gamers Dorkness Rising. You can find the whole thing for free on YouTube. That is what got me to throw myself into role playing, like instead of just like my character does this. It's a good way to inhabit a character, practice an accent, just be silly, whatever. Like, my current character that I'm playing in a 13th Age game is a tiefling cleric who is basically a ball of sunshine. Previously in a Shadowrun game, I was playing a 70-year-old Hispanic grandmother.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I miss that character, actually.
What was her class, though? Was she like in the Shadowrun game?
Yeah, she was basically a face. Like, she was a retired Shadowrunner from her youth who had...
she was the fixer.
Yes, who had kept an information network going in the meantime, and then after her husband's death, kind of got back into it.
I was kind of hoping it was like a 70-year-old like street samurai or something like that. That'd be awesome.
She's all gears.
Cool. Which,
she's got like a cybernetic shotgun embedded in her arm and everything.
My favorite thing that I liked to do in that game was be a distraction, because people were very confused by the sudden appearance of just a confused old lady. Just, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, gun.
I'm actually going to be I'm joining a D&D podcast as a player character coming up. We're going to film it, and I'm going to be starting to run online my Suicide Squad game.
Oh, nice.
Which I've been running it, a tabletop version of it, and it has just been massive fun. Dark comedy, super violent. It's the Suicide Squad. Okay. So the idea is find those things, guys, make them, do it for voice acting, because the hope is I can get some voice acting people to do a Suicide Squad.
If you need a Harley, you
And
know where
we
to
can do
find
that.
me.
Well, that's the thing is, I really want more original characters. I want people to create
excellent.
their own. Because I've had Owlman from Crisis on Two Earths show up. I've had Amanda Waller. I like to do my voices and stuff as the game master. But guys, like tabletop role playing, online role playing is a great way to test your skills, brush the rust off, really try yourself.
We've got a
It really is great.
question from Cade in chat.
Mhm.
What's a character you struggled finding the voice for, but you became as you practiced? Anything like that? Ooh, yes. Because I do audiobooks, I do a whole big variety of characters in there. And one of the characters from a book series that wrapped up last year, she shows up in the first book of the series as a supporting character, becomes a point of view later on. And when she first showed up, she was just like, oh, she's the younger sister. She has a higher voice.
Mhm.
But then when she got her own point of view, I'm like, okay, but how do I make her sound like a full adult? And because this is somebody who in the book is in her 30s. And as it, like, just as I kept doing that voice and I kept, finding out more about the character, which, by the way, please pre-read if you do audiobooks, please pre-read that so you know who gets what voice, what foreshadowing you need to do.
Yes. And voice Bible with the author if you can.
Yes.
Voice Bible with the author if you can.
And so that was one that kind of I settled into over the course of the series. And then there's always, accents and things like that. Like
Yeah.
I pride myself on being a quick study of accents, but some are difficult and it takes a lot of practice.
For
Chris,
me, it
what about
was
you?
for me doing my first audiobook it's a romantic superhero book. And the problem was I have to do a lot of female voices, and I obviously have a natural, deeper voice.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, guys, when you're doing that, you don't stereotype anything.
Mm-hmm.
All I do is slightly soften my voice. So I can do multiple female characters without trying to be feminine in any way. Just be a mimic. Listen. And one of the most amazing voice actors I've listened to is Bronson Pinchot. Balky from Perfect
Yep.
Strangers did an audio series I listened to that was set in an alternate 1940s where he did Japanese, French, German, multiple international characters.
Mhm.
And when he did, because this is set in the 40s, so Japan is a very imperialistic culture. And how he did it was he didn't do any stereotyping at all. But how he did it was listening to Japanese dignitaries who spoke English
Mm-hmm.
and how that and the different inflections they would use, and he hit those marks.
Yep.
So you avoid any terrible choices. Listen to other people's cultures. Listen to how vowels are formed in different languages, but don't try to appropriate that language.
Yeah.
Because one of my first voice acting gigs, and they were like, well, we want a Peloponnesian style voice. And I was like, well, have you looked at getting a Peloponnesian voice actor? And then they were talking about the character and said, oh, it's not a Polynesian
Yeah, I was
character.
about to say Greek.
Yeah, it's not a Polynesian character. It's a underwater character.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'll take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this, but I'll add some Slavic in there, and created a different accent for it and did that way, which is not appropriating a culture. It's taking those vowels. Like I absolutely love Winston Dukes in Baku.
Mm-hmm.
In that Nigerian and that Ghana style accent. I would never do that character. I would never do that character, but I can listen to those vowels and those consonant uses, and I can try and study them to increase my vocal range, but I won't portray those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in an audiobook, you have to cover everybody. You're an audio actor, you got to do everything, but don't go in and portray a character that needs to be for somebody else, guys. Make sure you're doing that correctly.
Well, okay. I love the sound of your mic, Lauren. Excellent. It's also great tips on audiobooks for both of you. Makes sense because if it felt forced or overdone, I'd probably hate listening to that. Yeah, that is, again, you know what you like to listen to, whether it's TV, audiobooks, commercials. You know what sounds authentic to you and what sounds forced. And that is definitely something to keep in mind, just to be you. Like, again, be you.
Exactly. Well, that is our time for this afternoon. So thank you both very much for being here. I greatly appreciate all your time. Of course, you guys have been on with us for multiple years doing this. So thank you both very much. I appreciate this.
Oh, we love
Thank
being
you.
here.
And Chris, where can we find you at?
You can find me on pretty much every social media called @the_Jowers, and pay attention, because coming up this year, I'm going to be launching a lot of voice acting work and acting work, but I'm also working right now to create my own voice audio theater company studio. So, and someone on this panel may very well be showing up in it. I don't want to mention any names, not George.
Yes.
There you go. That way. There we go.
Yeah.
I am very much looking forward to that. You can find everywhere that I'm at professionally at my website, lwsalinas.com. You can find me on Blue Sky at Sithwitch. And yeah, I do a weekly Marvel podcast, mostly about the cinematic universe. Right now, we are covering What If Season 3 at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. I am occasionally a co-host on the All Elite Talk podcast, talking about All Elite Wrestling. I haven't been able to be on lately due to health stuff, but I'm hoping to come back soon. I am writing weekly for another AEW fan project, and I'm just blanking out on the name, but you can find it on my website. I'm doing story beats of the week for AEW. So yeah, if you want to talk voice acting, if you want to talk comics, pro wrestling, whatever, yeah, Sithwitch is me.
Yeah, that's big stuff on Collision happened with Tony Storm last night. So I heard, I got to check it out. I haven't seen it yet. So anyway,
you could say it's even timeless. Big Tony Storm fan.
That does it
Talk
for us this
wrestling
afternoon.
with me.
Yeah, that does it for us this afternoon. So we're going to sign off. So thank you guys very much. Don't forget to donate at thefacebook.com, the Multiverse Fundraiser. The link right down there at the bottom. So thank you guys, and we'll see you all next time.
Have a good one, guys.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
The Multiverse Fundraiser would like to thank our sponsors: Earth Dog Studios, Clobbern Comics, The Art of Brian Rodman, Studio Moonfall, Elusive Comics, and of course, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment Network for hosting this event. Learn how to support these businesses on the MVFR website.